where did he begin? What was he like a child? And what eventually got him into prison for 10 years? And eventually right here before all of you guys making over $2 million a month. He has all the best real estate in the world. And tell us more about yourself, Wes.
I mean, I grew up in Oceanside, California. It's a part of San Diego, about 15 minutes north of here. I was actually driving up the coast and I was remembering my childhood today. I grew up surfing, snowboarding, and skating. And that's the thing. At that time, in the 90s into the early 2000s, I was born in 83. I'm 39. But at that time, we smoked weed. Surfers, skaters, snowboarders from SoCal, they smoke weed.
Yeah.
So, me and all my friends, that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to smoke weed. And once you have a habit like that at a young age, you got to find a way
Trust me, I know.
to smoke for free. And so smoking for free turned into selling weed turned into selling harder drugs, selling weed turned into selling big amounts of weed. Now, once you start making a good amount of money doing it, it no longer becomes, hey, I want to smoke for free. Hey, I could live a dope life off this.
Yeah.
And we grew up on Scarface, Goodfellas, all the gangster movies, the drug dealing, that era.
Yeah.
And so that turned into a vision that, hey, I could live well off this. I grew up, my dad's a construction worker, mom's a hairdresser. We had no money. We were lower middle class.
Yeah.
We had everything. We had a roof, we had food, we had all that, car, everything. But in America and Southern California, if you're lower middle class, you're poor, you're looked down upon, you're not living like this, and you struggle. Yeah. Arguably, that type of struggle in Southern California as lower middle class is harder than anywhere in the world. Yeah. Because what you know is what you don't have. So you're either a have or a have not. You're looking around, there's struggle. I was always embarrassed. The parents place a lot of stress on the family about not having the bills at the end of the month. When the end of the month would come, there's a lot of pain, stress, and negative energy in a household.
So Wes, I happened to see one of these interviews of yours where you mentioned that, your dad was really, really tough. And despite all of that, being a construction worker, you really looked up to him. He had an immense work ethic. And that's what you've also incorporated into your own life. But what do you think your dad essentially lacked that made you feel that, you were essentially really, really embarrassed of your lifestyle way back then? What could you have done differently that you actually did?
Well, my dad was a beast. He was like 6'5", 270, just huge arms. He was just a man's man. Like, just what he was. And I mean, nobody would deny that, but he just didn't have the financial savvy, like, to really take care of a family at a high level. Now that the way I live, I mean, I have 3 Rolls Royces, I have 3 Lamborghinis, I have a mansion in Rancho Santa Fe, a mansion in Venetian Islands in Miami. I fly private multiple times a week. Now, seeing what was capable when I just was a more developed individual in any fucking area. Yeah. If he chose to be a very developed individual mentally, he could have had the biggest construction business known to man that was doing 9 figures annually. He could have. I mean, anyone can when they're at that level mentally of accepting and walking into a vision that's far superior than anything they've known, but they only know small amounts of success. Right. I always envisioned grand amounts of success and got around those that lived it. So it became, I normalized it by being around them. And if I wasn't around them, I read about them, I watched them, right. I looked at high-end cars and a high-end lifestyle always. Even still till this day, when I go to bed at night, I'm Googling every property that I would want to get, and I'm the next car purchase or whatever. I've barely made it to looking at LaFerraris and Bugattis now. But I mean, as that happens in planes and my own jet now and stuff, as that happens, you start to see how it'll fit your life, understand the financial burden, and see if it's an allocation that you can make in your current life. Correct. A lot of people who are like suffering financially, they have such a small vision that that's what traps them. And I just believe my dad wasn't around successful enough people. If he had a group like a mastermind group of other construction business owners like we have nowadays online, which he didn't have back then. If they had that nowadays, like, let's all meet up and talk numbers and learn from each other, imagine what he could have been. Right. And that's why I tell you guys that fucking masterminds and groups and communities are so crucial, because you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know what's possible till you get around the other people. I was speaking at an event the other day, and I said, how many people in here make over $2 million a month. 2 people raised their hand. One was Bedros Keuilian and one was me.
He's one of your mentors.
And he's one of my mentors.
Right.
Everybody else was a high-level person, very famous high-level people. None of them were making that much. They weren't directly mentored by this man. They weren't directly mentored by people who have a success level that they were willing to step into with the work ethic and the understanding and then taking the blueprint.
Correct. So how did you learn about this blueprint? What did it actually teach you about your own self, about where you were lacking essentially? Right in the beginning when you got started.
Personal development in general, the whole thing is your success will never exceed your level of personal development.
Yeah.
Success is something you attract by the person you've become. So once you're putting stuff out online or you're working with high-level individuals, they see your daily habits and the level at which you're thriving as an individual, and that's an attraction to them. Say I own a massive company and some youngster has a very rigid set of non-negotiable habits where he's elevating as an individual quickly. Well, then I would hire for attitude and then train him for skill.
Absolutely.
Because that attitude, that mindset is someone who will thrive. And I mean, people just don't understand that. They think they can drink. They think they can be lazy. They think they can do drugs. They think they can overeat. And then they think they can just thrive in just business. And that's where most of the people from like the 70s, 80s, 90s, and early 2000s failed. And that's why a lot of people are becoming very successful very quickly in like, the 2010s to 20s and on, because they understand that personal development is the prerequisite to their success. Because I mean, just put it this way. Before I went to prison, I was a multimillionaire, but I had poor habits.
Correct.
Those poor habits landed me in prison.
Right.
Now I'm a multimillionaire and I have good habits. So now the trajectory is massive. I mean,
it's changed completely.
100%. It's even biblical, like the story of Matthew, where those who have more will steadily get more.
Very
and
true.
Those who have less, more will be taken from them.
Very true.
And so, I mean, you look around at these signs, and people who are taking one step today will soon say 1.25, 1.5, 2.5 per day. And it's what I've known people who understand their trajectory to operate from. And it all comes from confidence, follow through. And like I've said before, the whole thing is confidence is a byproduct of consistent implementation.
Absolutely right.
This man was consistently implementing improper habits and vices in a mindset that wasn't congruent with the outcome he wanted. If he would have consistently implemented a bunch of habits that were based on a positive mindset, restructuring his vision, moving forward with no friction due to clarity because he didn't engage in acts that built karmic debt. I mean, a lot of people are suffering from karmic debt, and we'll get into that later. But the whole thing is the amount of clarity I have because of the character I possess is what gets me able to move forward quicker than most. So, but if this man would have structured his daily habits in alignment with the outcome he wanted, his thoughts, actions, and energy aligned with the outcome he wanted, then he would have got the outcome for sure.
Shown up as his future self, but right now.
100%. Right now, showing up as his future self right now. So he walks into that. And every endeavor he pursues as a man that is yet to even be established because he's so far ahead of everybody.